I am Frances, 57 years old, a retired financial advisor who built my wealth quietly while living modestly. My daughter Amanda never knew our true financial situation. She grew up demanding more and more, becoming increasingly entitled. When she ordered me out of our beach house, saying I had 24 hours to leave what she thought was hers, she had no idea what was coming. I just smiled knowing her father and I had secretly amassed $85 million. Where are you watching from today? Hit like and subscribe before we continue, and get ready to see what happens when someone pushes a patient mother too far. I grew up in a small town in Idaho where every dollar mattered. My parents worked multiple jobs just to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. Mom cleaned houses during the day and waited tables at night while Dad worked at the factory and did handyman jobs on weekends. They were exhausted most of the time, but they never complained. Instead, they taught me the value of hard work and careful money management. Frances always saves something even if it seems impossible, my mother would say while showing me how to stretch our grocery budget. Money saved is freedom earned. Those early lessons shaped my entire approach to finances. I watched my parents struggle to pay bills on time, sometimes having to choose between fixing the car or buying new shoes. By 16, I was helping them balance the checkbook and find ways to reduce expenses. Those skills came naturally to me, like I had been born with a calculator in my hand. When college application time arrived, I knew my parents couldn't afford tuition. I spent countless nights applying for every scholarship available, working after school at the local library to earn application fees. The effort paid off when I received a partial scholarship to the University of Washington. It wasn't a full ride, but it was enough to make college possible if I worked part-time. During my sophomore year, I met Jack in an economics class. He was smart, funny, and shared my practical approach to money. Unlike the other boys who spent their money on fancy dates, Jack suggested we study in the park with sandwiches he made himself. I knew I had found someone special. "I like that you understand the difference between price and value," he told me one evening as we walked around campus. Most people never learn that distinction. After graduation, we married in a simple ceremony at my parents' backyard. Our honeymoon was a weekend camping trip because we were saving for a down payment on our first home. Some friends thought we were being too frugal, but we had a vision for our future that required patience. Jack landed an entry-level position at an engineering firm while I started working for a small financial planning company. We lived in a tiny apartment, drove used cars, and saved over 50% of our income. Within 3 years, we had enough for a modest starter home in a decent neighborhood. My career took off when I developed a knack for identifying undervalued investments. My clients saw remarkable returns and word spread quickly. I moved to a prestigious firm where I worked with increasingly wealthy clients, learning strategies that the truly rich use to build and preserve wealth. What fascinated me most was how many genuinely wealthy people lived modestly. They weren't the ones with flashy cars and designer clothes. The real millionaires often lived in middle-class neighborhoods, drove practical cars, and spent carefully. This reinforced my own philosophy about money. Jack and I decided early on that we would maintain a moderate lifestyle regardless of our income. As our salaries increased, our standard of living improved slightly, but the vast majority of our additional earnings went straight into investments. When Amanda was born, we briefly considered moving to a larger house in a more upscale neighborhood with better schools. After researching school districts, we found that our modest area had an excellent public school with dedicated teachers. We decided to stay put and invest the difference for Amanda's future. By the time I was 40, my investment portfolio had grown substantially. I had developed a diverse strategy that included real estate, stocks, bonds, and private equity. Jack had also risen through the ranks at his company, eventually becoming chief engineer with stock options that multiplied our wealth. We could have afforded a mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood in town, but we remained in our comfortable four-bedroom home worth about $800,000. To our neighbors and even our daughter, we appeared to be solidly middle-class professionals who were doing well, but certainly not rich. This was a conscious choice we called our stealth wealth strategy. We had seen too many people who flaunted their money become targets for scams, false friendships, and family members with hands out. More importantly, we wanted Amanda to develop a strong work ethic rather than feeling entitled to luxury. If she knows we have millions, she might never develop the drive to achieve on her own, Jack reasoned. I agreed, though. Sometimes I wondered if we were making the right choice. When Jack suffered a sudden fatal heart attack at 52, my world collapsed. He had always been healthy, exercised regularly, and watched his diet. The doctor said sometimes these things just happen. but that explanation offered little comfort as I faced life without my partner of 30 years. The funeral was simple as Jack would have wanted. Friends and colleagues spoke about his brilliance, kindness, and integrity. What none of them knew was that Jack had left behind a substantial fortune. His life insurance policy paid out $3 million, and his investment accounts contained another $22 million. Combined with my own portfolio, our net worth had reached approximately $85 million. After his death, I briefly considered changing our lifestyle, perhaps moving to a nicer home or indulging in some luxuries Jack and I had denied ourselves. But something stopped me. Living modestly had become part of my identity, and maintaining our financial privacy seemed even more important now that I was on my own. Amanda was 24 when her father died, already showing signs of entitlement despite our efforts. I worried that knowing about our true financial situation would only make things worse. So I continued our middle-class facade, living in our family home, driving a 3-year-old Volvo, and being careful with expenses in public. My friends sometimes questioned why I still worked after Jack died, assuming I must need the income. I simply said I enjoyed my work, which was true, but I also needed to maintain our cover story. Eventually, at 55, I allowed myself to retire, explaining that Jack's prudent saving and insurance had left me comfortable enough to stop working. Little did anyone suspect that the woman living in the modest house on Maple Street was worth $85 million. I enjoyed the freedom that came with financial independence while living below my means, a secret millionaire hiding in plain sight. I still remember the day Amanda was born, a tiny bundle with Jack's blue eyes and my auburn hair. When the nurse placed her in my arms for the first time, I felt a love so profound it took my breath away. Jack and I promised each other that we would raise her to be kind, hardworking, and grateful for what she had. During her early years, Amanda was sweet and undemanding. She played happily with simple toys and seemed content with our modest lifestyle. Jack built her a wooden dollhouse that she treasured more than the expensive electronic toys some of her friends had. We thought we were succeeding in raising a child with solid values. The first signs of trouble appeared when Amanda started elementary school. Suddenly, she began comparing what she had to what her classmates possessed. She came home one day in tears because another girl had mocked her lunchbox. "Lily has a designer lunchbox that cost $50, she sobbed. "She said mine looks like it came from a dollar store." "It did come from a dollar store," I explained gently. "And it works perfectly well. We spend our money on things that matter, like your education and experiences." Jack took her fishing that weekend, hoping to reinforce the idea that time together was more valuable than material things. For a while, it seemed to work. Amanda proudly told her class about catching her first fish and forgot about the lunchbox incident. But as she moved into middle school, the pressure intensified. She began asking for brand-name clothes, the latest electronics, and expensive activities that her friends enjoyed. Jack and I discussed each request carefully. We weren't opposed to buying her nice things, but we wanted her to understand their value. "If you want the new phone that costs $500, you can earn half through chores and babysitting, and we will pay the other half," I offered when she was 13. Amanda initially agreed but grew frustrated after a few weeks of saving. "This is taking forever," she complained. "Sophia's parents just bought her the phone. They did not make her work for it." "We are not Sophia's parents," Jack replied firmly. "In this family, we understand that things have value and we appreciate them more when we work for them." By high school, Amanda had developed a concerning pattern. She gravitated toward the wealthiest students, seeking friendships with girls whose parents bought them cars for their 16th birthdays and took them on extravagant vacations. She became increasingly embarrassed by our middle-class lifestyle. "Why do we always have to be so cheap?" she demanded after we declined to send her on a spring break trip to Mexico with her friends. "Everyone else is going." "We are not cheap, Amanda," I corrected her. "We are careful with our money. There is a difference. And not everyone is going to Mexico. That is an exaggeration." The truth was, we could have easily afforded to send her on multiple international trips. But we worried about the message it would send. Would she expect even more expensive indulgences? Would she learn that she could get whatever she wanted just by demanding it? Instead, we offered alternatives like a family road trip to national parks or volunteer work that would look good on college applications. When it came time for college, Amanda had her heart set on an expensive private university. Jack and I had saved enough in her college fund to cover tuition at a state school which offered excellent programs in her chosen field of business. but she insisted that the prestigious name of the private university would give her better connections and job prospects. After much discussion, we agreed to pay the equivalent of state tuition, with Amanda taking loans for the difference. We hoped this compromise would help her appreciate her education and take her studies seriously. In retrospect, this may have been our first major mistake. Rather than seeing our contribution as generous, she focused on what we were not providing. During her college years, Amanda called home less frequently, except when she needed money for emergencies that often turned out to be spring break trips or shopping sprees. When she did visit, she made snide comments about our home, our clothes, and our cars. "Do you know how embarrassing it is to have my friends drop me off here?" she said during her sophomore year, gesturing to our well-maintained but modest house. Everyone else's parents live in much nicer neighborhoods. Jack was hurt by these comments, but maintained his composure. "This house has given us shelter, comfort, and many happy memories. There is no shame in living within your means." After college graduation, Amanda took a marketing job in the city about 30 miles from our home. She seemed to be on track professionally, but her spending habits were concerning. She rented an apartment she could barely afford in an exclusive area, bought designer clothes, and ate at expensive restaurants several times a week. When she met Tyler at a charity gala she had stretched her budget to attend, she thought she had found her ticket to the lifestyle she craved. He came from what appeared to be a wealthy family, wore expensive watches, and drove a luxury car. What Amanda did not initially realize was that Tyler's family wealth was mostly for show, built on credit and precarious investments. They dated for 2 years before getting married in a lavish ceremony that they expected us to pay for. Jack and I offered a reasonable budget that would have covered a beautiful but sensible wedding. Amanda was furious. "This is supposed to be the happiest day of my life," she exclaimed. "Why are you trying to ruin it with your penny pinching?" We stood firm, explaining that we would contribute $15,000 and anything beyond that would be their responsibility. Amanda and Tyler ended up spending over $70,000 on their wedding, putting the balance on credit cards and taking a loan from Tyler's parents that would haunt them for years. After the wedding, they bought a house they could not really afford in an upscale neighborhood, furnishing it with high-end decor that maxed out their credit cards. Despite their good combined income, they were constantly struggling financially due to their lifestyle choices. Amanda began calling me with increasing frequency, always with a financial emergency that needed solving. The car needed repairs. The roof was leaking. Medical bills had piled up after a minor procedure. Each time I suggested practical solutions like setting up an emergency fund or cutting back on unnecessary expenses. "Mom, we are not poor like you and Dad," she would say dismissively. "We have an image to maintain. Our friends and colleagues expect a certain lifestyle." These comments stung, but I tried to remember that she did not know our true financial situation. Jack and I had raised her with middle-class values, but somewhere along the way she had rejected those principles in favor of appearances. When Jack died, Amanda seemed more concerned about what he had left her than about losing her father. She was visibly disappointed when the will specified a modest inheritance of $50,000 with the rest going to me. "That is all, sir?" she asked, not bothering to hide her shock. "I thought Dad would have had more life insurance or investments." "Your father was always careful with money," I replied, not mentioning the millions that had actually passed to me. "He provided what we needed, but he was not a wealthy man." Amanda's relationship with Tyler had begun to show strain by this point. They fought frequently about money, with each blaming the other for their financial difficulties. Despite these problems, they continued to project an image of success to their friends, taking expensive vacations they could not afford and buying luxury items to keep up appearances. Their desire for a vacation property intensified after several of their friends purchased second homes. Amanda became fixated on the idea that a beach house would solve their problems and elevate their status. She began dropping hints during our weekly phone calls. "The Andersons just bought the cutest place in Florida," she mentioned casually. "It would be so nice to have somewhere to escape during the cold months." When I did not immediately offer to buy her a beach house, her hints became more direct. "Mom, you are all alone in that big house since Dad died. Have you thought about investing in a vacation property? We could all use it, and it would be a good investment for your retirement." What Amanda did not realize was that I had indeed been considering purchasing a beach house, not because of her hints, but because I had always loved the ocean. Jack and I had talked about retiring to the coast someday, and after his death I felt drawn to fulfill that dream. The difference was that I could actually afford such a purchase without financial strain. 6 months after Jack's death, I found myself drawn to the Florida coast, seeking solace in the rhythmic sound of waves that had always brought us peace during our rare vacations. Walking along the shoreline one morning, I spotted a for sale sign on a beautiful blue beach house with a wraparound porch and panoramic ocean views. The property was listed at $2.5 million, a substantial sum, but well within my means. I called the realtor immediately and toured the house that afternoon. With 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and an open living area that faced the ocean, it seemed perfect for family gatherings. I could almost hear Jack's voice saying, "This is the one, Fran." I purchased the house in cash through my LLC, a financial arrangement that kept my name off public records and maintained my privacy. The realtor was surprised by the swift, all-cash transaction, but handled everything professionally. Within 3 weeks, I had the keys to a stunning beach house that I hoped would bring my family together. When I called Amanda to share the news, I deliberately downplayed the value of the property, saying only that I had found a nice place on the Florida coast where we could spend holidays together. "A beach house. You bought a beach house." Her tone shifted from disbelief to excitement. "How can you afford that?" "Wait, is it actually on the beach or just near the beach?" "It is right on the water," I replied. "I have been saving for years, and with the life insurance money from your father, I was able to make it happen. I thought it would be nice for us to have a place to gather and make new memories." Amanda and Tyler arrived for their first visit 2 weeks later. I will never forget Amanda's expression when she stepped onto the deck and saw the unobstructed ocean view. Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw the wonder of the little girl who had once been content with simple pleasures. "Mom, this is incredible," she whispered. "I had no idea you could afford something like this." I smiled and explained that I had made a good investment with Jack's insurance money, which was partially true. What I did not mention was that the house represented less than 3% of my total net worth. That first weekend was wonderful. We walked on the beach, cooked seafood in the gourmet kitchen, and talked late into the night on the deck. Amanda seemed genuinely grateful, and I dared to hope that this property might help heal our strained relationship. "This place is perfect for family holidays," I said over breakfast on their last day. "I was thinking we could all gather here for Thanksgiving this year." "Absolutely," Amanda agreed enthusiastically. "Tyler and I would love that. And maybe we could come down for a week or two during the summer. It would be so nice to escape the city heat." I readily agreed, happy to see her excitement. "This house is for all of us to enjoy, so," I told her. "Just let me know when you would like to use it so I can make sure it is available." Unfortunately, that qualifier about checking availability became a point of contention almost immediately. Within a month, Amanda was calling to inform me rather than ask me about her plans to use the house. "Tyler and I are coming down next weekend with some friends from work," she announced one Tuesday afternoon. "We will be there Friday through Monday." "Actually, Amanda, I will be at the house that weekend," I explained. "I am meeting with a landscape designer about the garden." There was a pause before she responded with obvious irritation. "Mom, you live there all the time. Surely you can reschedule one appointment so we can use the beach house." "I do not live here all the time," I corrected her. "I still maintain my primary residence back home. And while I want you to enjoy the beach house, it is my property, and I need you to check with me before making plans." This conversation set the tone for what became an increasingly problematic situation. Amanda began treating the beach house as her personal property. She would arrive unannounced sometimes with groups of friends I had never met. They would leave the house in disarray with empty wine bottles scattered about and wet towels piled on bathroom floors. On several occasions, I arrived to find items moved or replaced. A painting I had chosen for the living room was relegated to a guest bedroom, replaced by an abstract piece that Amanda had selected. The comfortable sectional sofa that I loved for afternoon reading was swapped for a stylish but uncomfortable modern design. When I questioned these changes, Amanda became defensive. "I was just trying to update the place a little," she said. "The decor was a bit old-fashioned. Our friends were commenting on it." "Our friends," I echoed. "Amanda, this is my house. I appreciate that you want to enjoy it, but you cannot redecorate without discussing it with me first." She rolled her eyes in response. "Mom, you know I have always had better taste than you. Besides, this place is going to be mine eventually, so I might as well put my stamp on it now." That comment stopped me cold. What makes you think the beach house will be yours? Amanda looked at me as though I was being deliberately obtuse. Well, of course it will come to me when you know, everything will. I am your only child. I chose my words carefully. Amanda, I have not made any decisions about the distribution of my assets. And regardless, it is inappropriate to make assumptions about your inheritance while I am very much alive and well. She brushed off my concerns with a laugh. Mom, do not be so serious. I am just saying that since the house will be in the family, it makes sense for me to have input on how it looks. The tension continued to build over the next year. Amanda and Tyler began storing personal items at the beach house, taking over an entire bedroom as their own. They installed a wine refrigerator without consulting me and had a boat dock built that I had to pay for when they left the contractor with an unpaid bill. During one particularly uncomfortable weekend, I overheard Amanda on the phone with a friend. "We are at our beach house for the weekend," she was saying, emphasizing the hour in a way that made my blood boil. "Mom thinks it is hers, but she is just holding it for us until she gets too old to use it. Tyler and I have already planned the renovations we will do once she turns over the keys." I confronted her after the call. "Amanda, I need to be very clear about something. This house belongs to me, not to us, not to you and Tyler. To me. I bought it with my money, and I maintain it with my money." Amanda's face flushed with anger. "Why are you being so selfish? You are one person. This house sits empty most of the time. Tyler and I would get so much more use out of it. Besides, what else would you do with it? Leave it to charity when you have family who could enjoy it." That conversation made me realize that my attempt to bring the family closer through the beach house had backfired spectacularly. Instead of appreciating my generosity, Amanda had come to expect it as her due. The entitlement I had tried so hard to prevent had flourished despite my efforts. It was around this time that I made a decision that would later prove to be pivotal. Without telling Amanda or anyone else, I purchased a second beach house about 2 miles down the coast. This one was smaller with 3 bedrooms instead of 4, but it had an even more beautiful view and a lovely garden that reminded me of the one Jack and I had tended together for decades. The second property cost $1.8 million, another cash purchase. Through my LLC, I furnished it simply but elegantly with comfortable pieces that brought me joy. Unlike the first beach house, which had become a source of stress, this second home became my private sanctuary. I made friends with my neighbors, a retired professor and his wife, who shared my love of gardening and quiet evenings watching the sunset. I joined the local book club and volunteered at the Marine Wildlife Center. For the first time since Jack's death, I felt like I was building a life that was truly my own. Meanwhile, the situation with the first beach house continued to deteriorate. Amanda began scheduling time there almost every weekend, often with different groups of friends who treated the property with little respect. Twice, I arrived to find damage that required expensive repairs. After particularly rowdy guests broke an antique table that had belonged to my grandmother, I suggested to Amanda that perhaps we should establish some ground rules for the property. "Rules?" she scoffed. "Mom, we are adults, not college students. We do not need you policing how we use the house." "Adults typically respect other people's property," I pointed out. "That table was irreplaceable." She shrugged. "It was old anyway. We should be updating the furniture, not preserving antiques no one appreciates." I realized then that Amanda had no understanding of or respect for boundaries. In her mind, what was mine was already hers by right. This sense of entitlement had been growing for years, but I had failed to address it effectively. Now it had reached a point where direct confrontation seemed inevitable. My therapist, whom I had been seeing to help process my grief over Jack, suggested that enabling Amanda's behavior was harming both of us. "Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for our adult children is to let them experience the consequences of their actions," she advised. I thought about this wisdom as I spent more time at my second beach house, increasingly avoiding the first property that had become Amanda's de facto territory. I began to formulate a plan that would allow me to reclaim my peace while possibly teaching Amanda a valuable lesson about respect and appreciation. Little did I know that Amanda was about to force my hand in a way that would change our relationship forever. The catalyst for our final confrontation came when Amanda's friend, Brooke, announced that her parents had gifted her their vacation home in Colorado. Amanda returned from Brooke's housewarming weekend seething with resentment. "Brooke's parents just signed over their entire mountain lodge to her," Amanda complained during our weekly phone call. Meanwhile, you will not even let me redecorate the beach house without making a fuss. There is a significant difference between redecorating and ownership, I pointed out calmly. And every family makes their own decisions as based on their specific circumstances. Their specific circumstances are that they actually care about their daughter's happiness. She snapped. Unlike some parents I know. I chose not to respond to this provocation, but the conversation left me unsettled. Amanda's sense of entitlement had reached new heights, and I wondered what would happen next. I did not have to wait long to find out. 2 days later, I received a panicked call from Tyler. Francis, we are in a bit of a financial situation, he admitted reluctantly. The company is downsizing, and my position might be eliminated. We have been thinking that maybe it would make sense for us to move into the beach house temporarily to reduce our expenses. Move into the beach house? I repeated, stunned by the suggestion. Tyler, that property is not set up as a permanent residence. It is a vacation home. We could make it work, he insisted. Amanda already loves it there, and it would save us a fortune in mortgage payments while I look for a new position. What about Amanda's job, Abbas? I asked. The beach house is 3 hours from her office. There was a telling pause. Well, actually, Amanda has been thinking about taking a break from work anyway. The stress has been getting to her lately. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. This was not about Tyler potentially losing his job. This was a calculated attempt to take over my beach house, likely prompted by Amanda's jealousy over her friend's new property. I am sorry, Tyler, but that would not be a suitable arrangement, I said firmly. The beach house is my personal vacation property, not a solution for your financial planning. I had expected some pushback, but I was unprepared for what happened next. Less than 24 hours later, Amanda arrived unannounced at my primary residence, barging through the front door without even knocking. How dare you refuse to help us when we are in need? She shouted as she stormed into my living room. Her face was flushed with anger, and her designer purse swung wildly from her arm. I set down my book calmly. Amanda, I understand you are upset, but this is not an appropriate way to begin a conversation. Do not talk to me about appropriate, she spat. What is not appropriate is having a mother who sits on a valuable property while her daughter and son-in-law face financial ruin. Financial ruin seems like an exaggeration, I observed. You and Tyler both have good jobs and a nice home. Tyler is being laid off, she insisted, though her eyes shifted away from mine in a way that made me suspect she was not being entirely truthful. And our mortgage is underwater since the housing market dropped. We need help, and you are refusing to provide it out of pure selfishness. I took a deep breath, maintaining my composure. Amanda, I am sorry about Tyler's job situation, but moving into the beach house is not a practical solution. If you need financial assistance, perhaps we could discuss a temporary loan to help you through this period. Her laugh was bitter and dismissive. A loan? Are you kidding me? Why should we have to borrow money when you are sitting on a multi-million-dollar property that you barely use? It makes no sense for an old woman to have such a large vacation home all to herself. The contempt in her voice when she called me an old woman cut deeper than I wanted to admit. At 57, I was hardly elderly, and her characterization stung. That beach house should be ours. She continued pacing the room like a caged animal. Dad would have wanted us to have it. He always put family first, unlike you. The mention of Jack was the final straw. Do not presume to tell me what your father would have wanted. I said, my voice quiet but firm. Jack believed in earning what you have, not demanding it from others. Well, he is not here anymore, is he? Amanda retorted cruelly. And you are just using his memory as an excuse to be stingy. I stood up, finally allowing some of my anger to show. I think this conversation has gone far enough. I suggest you go home and calm down. We can discuss this rationally another time. But Amanda was not finished. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a threatening tone. Here is what is going to happen, Mom. You are going to sign the beach house over to me and Tyler. We are the ones who really appreciate it and use it properly. You can keep your little suburban house and live out your retirement there. I stared at her in disbelief. That is not going to happen, Amanda. The beach house is my property purchased with my money, and I have no intention of signing it over to anyone. Her face contorted with rage. This is not a request. I am telling you what is going to happen. If you do not sign the beach house over to us, you can forget about ever seeing your grandchildren. I do not have any grandchildren, I pointed out evenly. Not yet, she snapped. But when we do have kids, you will never meet them unless you do the right thing here. I felt a profound sadness washing over me. This angry, entitled woman was almost unrecognizable as the daughter I had raised. Somewhere along the way, I had failed her terribly, and now we were both paying the price for that failure. Amanda, I think you should leave now, I said quietly. This conversation is not productive, and we both need time to think. I'm not going anywhere until you agree to my terms, she shouted, slamming her hand down on my coffee table hard enough to make my teacup rattle. You have 24 hours to decide, Mom. Either sign the beach house over to us or consider yourself cut off from this family for good. I remained silent, struggling to process the ultimatum. My silence seemed to enrage her further. You have 24 hours to get out! She screamed, her face inches from mine. I want you completely moved out of the beach house by this time tomorrow. It is our property now, and we are taking possession immediately. With that final demand, she stormed toward the door, pausing only to deliver one last barb. 24 hours, Mom. The clock is ticking. And if you leave so much as a toothbrush behind, I will throw it in the ocean. The door slammed behind her with such force that a framed photo of our family fell from the wall and shattered on the hardwood floor. I looked down at the broken glass covering the smiling faces of Amanda, Jack, and myself from happier times. It seemed like an appropriate symbol for what had just happened to our family. I sat alone in my suddenly quiet living room, my heart racing and my hands shaking. Amanda's ultimatum echoed in my ears: 24 hours to get out. 24 hours to vacate a property that I owned outright. 24 hours to comply with demands made by a daughter who had no legal right to make them. For a moment, I considered capitulating, signing over the beach house just to keep peace in the family. But a stronger voice inside me, one that sounded remarkably like Jack's, urged me to stand firm. This was not just about a property. This was about respect boundaries and the dangerous path of entitlement that Amanda was traveling. In that moment of clarity, I made my decision. Amanda had given me 24 hours to get out. I would comply with her timeline, but not in the way she expected. I picked up my phone and made 2 calls that would change everything. The first call I made that evening was to my attorney, Harold Winters, who had handled my affairs for over 20 years. Harold was one of the few people who knew the true extent of my wealth, as he managed the legal structures that protected my assets. Harold, I need your help with an urgent matter. I explained, my voice steadier than I expected. I want to sell both of my beach properties immediately. Both properties. Harold sounded surprised. Francis, real estate transactions typically take weeks or months, especially for high-value properties like yours. I understand that, but I am willing to accept a lower price for a quick cash sale. Can you reach out to investors who might be interested? Harold paused before responding. This is quite unusual, Francis. May I ask what is prompting this sudden decision? I briefly explained the confrontation with Amanda, including her 24-hour ultimatum. I want her to discover that her tactics have backfired completely. By the time she arrives at the beach house tomorrow, I want the property to belong to someone else. I see, Harold said slowly. Well, it so happens that I have 2 clients who have been looking for oceanfront property in that area. Both have liquid assets and could potentially move quickly. But Francis, are you absolutely certain about this? These properties represent significant investments. I am certain, I replied. I would rather sell them both than allow Amanda to bully me into submission. Besides, I can always buy another beach house somewhere else, preferably far from where Amanda expects to find me. Harold agreed to make the calls immediately, and within 2 hours he called back with surprising news. Both of his clients were interested and willing to pay close to market value for a swift, hassle-free transaction. The first beach house, the one Amanda coveted, would go to a tech entrepreneur for $2.3 million. The second, my private sanctuary, would go to a retired surgeon and his wife for $1.7 million. They both want to inspect the properties tomorrow morning, Harold informed me. If everything looks good, we can close by the afternoon. I will have all the paperwork prepared tonight. My second call was to a real estate agent I had worked with previously, Laura Chen. Laura, I need to find a new property quickly. Something on the water, but not in Florida. I am thinking perhaps the Pacific Northwest. That is quite a change in location, Laura noted. Any particular reason for the switch from Florida? I am ready for a new chapter, I said simply. Something with mountains and water would be ideal. A place where I can truly start fresh. Laura promised to send listings immediately focusing on waterfront properties in Washington and Oregon. By midnight, I had selected a stunning home on Puget Sound with views of the Olympic Mountains. At $3.5 million, it was more expensive than either of my Florida properties, but it offered privacy, beauty, and most importantly, distance from the drama unfolding in Florida. Early the next morning, I packed essential items from my primary residence and booked a hotel room near the airport. I then flew to Florida, arriving at the main beach house by 10. I spent 3 hours packing personal items, photographs, and the few family heirlooms I had placed there. Everything else would stay with the property as part of the sale. The potential buyers arrived at 1, touring both properties with obvious enthusiasm. By 3 in the afternoon, Harold called to confirm that both sales had been approved. The paperwork was signed electronically and the funds would be transferred to my accounts within 24 hours. Just as I was loading the last of my belongings into my rental car, I received a text message from Amanda. On our way to take possession of our beach house. Better be gone by the time we arrive. I did not respond, simply finishing my tasks and driving away. By the time Amanda and Tyler arrived, I was already at the airport checking in for my flight to Seattle, where I would begin the process of closing on my new home. Around 7 that evening, my phone exploded with calls and texts from Amanda. I let them go to voicemail, focusing instead on the peaceful view of clouds from my first-class seat. Finally, when the plane landed, I listened to the first message. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" Amanda's voice was shrill with panic. "There are strangers at the beach house who say they own it. They showed us paperwork saying they bought it today. Call me back immediately." The subsequent messages grew increasingly frantic and angry. In the final one, Amanda was nearly incoherent with rage. "You spiteful, vindictive old woman. How dare you sell the beach house just to punish me? This is unforgivable. Tyler and I already told everyone we were moving there. We look like complete idiots now. I will never forgive you for this." I waited until the following morning to call her back after a restful night in a luxurious Seattle hotel. Amanda answered on the first ring. "How could you do this to us?" She demanded without preamble, her voice raw with emotion. "I believe I was following your instructions," I replied calmly. "You said I had 24 hours to get out of the beach house. I complied with your timeline." "By selling it," she shrieked. "That is not what I meant, and you know it." "Actually, Amanda, I sold both beach houses," I corrected her. "The main one that you knew about and the smaller one down the coast that I purchased as my personal retreat after you began treating the first one as your own property." There was a moment of stunned silence. "What second beach house? What are you talking about?" "I bought a second property about a year ago," I explained. "After you and your friends began taking over the first one, I needed a place where I could actually relax and enjoy the ocean. That property sold yesterday as well." "You had 2 beach houses." Amanda's voice rose in disbelief. "How could you possibly afford that? And why would you keep it a secret from me?" "There are many things about my financial situation that you do not know." "Amanda," I said, "I kept the second property private because I wanted a place that was truly mine where I did not have to worry about unexpected guests or unauthorized redecorating." "This is insane," she muttered. "What are we supposed to do now?" "We told Tyler's boss we were relocating to the beach. He already accepted the layoff package." So Tyler had not been laid off after all. They had manufactured a crisis to justify their beach house takeover. The confirmation of their deception strengthened my resolve. "Your housing situation is not my responsibility, Amanda. You and Tyler are adults with good jobs and resources of your own. I suggest you return to your home and reconsider your plans based on reality, rather than expectations of what others should provide for you." "You have ruined everything," she wailed. "I will never forgive you for this." "I am sorry you feel that way." I said sincerely. When you are ready to have a respectful conversation about our relationship going forward, I will be available. Until then, I think we both need some space to reflect. I ended the call before she could respond, feeling a complex mixture of sadness and relief. The beach houses were gone, but so was the fiction that I had maintained for decades. It was time for Amanda to learn the truth about our family's finances, but first she needed to understand that her behavior had consequences. Over the next few weeks, I closed on my new home in Washington, a beautiful contemporary house with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Sound. I furnished it thoughtfully, choosing pieces that brought me joy rather than impressing others. I joined a local garden club and signed up for kayaking lessons, embracing this new chapter in my life with enthusiasm. Amanda's communications oscillated between angry tirades and tearful pleas. I responded to each with calm consistency, neither engaging with her rage nor succumbing to emotional manipulation. When she demanded financial assistance because you clearly have money to throw around, I declined politely. When she threatened to cut me off forever, I expressed sadness but accepted her decision. Eventually, after about 3 months of this standoff, I received a different kind of message. Mom, we need to talk, not to fight, just to talk. Tyler and I are struggling, and I think I need to understand some things. Can we meet somewhere? It was the first communication that did not contain accusations or demands. I took it as a positive sign and suggested a neutral location halfway between us. I can fly down next weekend if that works for you, I offered. 2 days later, I met Amanda at a quiet restaurant in a city convenient for both of us. She looked tired with dark circles under her eyes, and none of the designer accessories she typically flaunted. Tyler was not with her. Thank you for coming, she said stiffly as we sat down. I would not have blamed you if you had refused. I will always be willing to talk to you, Amanda, I assured her. You are my daughter, and I love you regardless of our disagreements. She nodded, looking down at her hands. Things have not been great since the beach house situation. Tyler and I separated last month. He blamed me for losing the beach house opportunity, said I mishandled everything. I am sorry to hear that, I said sincerely. Marriage troubles are painful regardless of the circumstances. We overextended ourselves financially, she admitted. The mortgage, the car payments, the credit cards. It all caught up with us when we had to adjust our plans. The bank is foreclosing on our house next month. I listened without interrupting as she detailed their financial collapse. Years of living beyond their means had created a house of cards that tumbled quickly once their beach house scheme failed. I do not understand, Mom, she said, finally looking up with genuine confusion. How did you afford 2 beach houses on your retirement income? Dad's life insurance could not have covered all that. I took a deep breath, knowing it was finally time for the truth. Amanda, your father and I were not exactly who you thought we were financially speaking. We lived modestly by choice, not by necessity. Her brow furrowed. What does that mean? It means that Jack and I accumulated significant wealth over our careers. We chose not to flaunt it or change our lifestyle dramatically because we valued financial security and independence over luxury or status. How significant? She asked cautiously. My current net worth is approximately $85 million. I stated simply. Amanda's mouth fell open. She stared at me in disbelief for several seconds before finding her voice. 85 million. That is impossible. You and Dad lived in a regular house. You drove used cars. You complained about the cost of my college tuition. We lived according to our values, I explained. We believed in careful stewardship of resources, avoiding waste, and appreciating what we had rather than constantly craving more. The house served our needs perfectly well. The cars were reliable and comfortable. As for college, we wanted you to understand the value of education and develop responsibility. But all those times I needed money, all those loans I asked for that you denied or questioned. We wanted you to learn financial independence. Giving you everything you asked for would have done you no favors in the long run. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. So when I demanded the beach house, you were asking me to hand over a property I had purchased as a retirement dream, yes. And you were doing so with threats and ultimatums rather than respect and appreciation. She covered her face with her hands. I have been such a fool, such an entitled, ungrateful fool. I reached across the table and gently pulled her hands away. You made mistakes, Amanda. We all do. The question is what you learn from them and how you grow. How can I possibly fix this? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. We start by being honest with each other, I suggested. No more secrets about finances on my part, no more manipulations or demands on yours. Then we work together to get you back on solid financial footing, not with handouts, but with education and support. You would still help me after how I treated you. Of course I would. You are my daughter, but help does not mean solving all your problems for you or giving you everything you want. Real help means empowering you to solve your own problems. Over the next few hours, we talked more openly than we had in years. I explained my financial philosophy and how Jack and I had built our wealth through careful investing and living below our means. Amanda shared her feelings of inadequacy compared to her wealthy friends and her desperate desire to belong in their social circles. By the end of our meeting, we had the outline of a plan. Amanda would move into a modest apartment she could actually afford. She would attend financial counseling sessions with the advisor I recommended. She would focus on rebuilding her career rather than her social status. And most importantly, she would work on developing gratitude and contentment with what she had rather than resentment about what she did not. I cannot promise I will change overnight, she admitted as we prepared to leave. These patterns are pretty deeply ingrained. I do not expect overnight transformation, I assured her. Just commitment to the process and honesty about the struggles. She hugged me then, the first genuine embrace we had shared in years. I am sorry, Mom. So very sorry for everything. I know, I said, holding her close. And I am sorry, too, for keeping secrets that ultimately did not serve either of us well. We will do better going forward. As I flew back to my new home that evening, I felt lighter than I had in years. The beach houses were gone, but something more valuable had taken their place, the possibility of an authentic relationship with my daughter based on truth rather than appearances. Looking out at the sunset over Puget Sound from my deck that evening, I could almost hear Jack's voice. You did the right thing, Fran. Sometimes the hardest choices are the most necessary ones. I raised my glass to the fading light. Here's to hard choices and new beginnings, I whispered, and to the freedom that comes from living authentically at last. 6 months after our reconciliation conversation, I find myself sitting on the deck of my Washington home, watching eagles soar over the sound, while reflecting on how much has changed. The path to healing our relationship has not been straight or easy, but Amanda and I have made remarkable progress. After our initial meeting, Amanda followed through on her commitment to financial counseling. Her counselor, a firm but compassionate woman named Diane, helped her understand the psychological patterns that had driven her spending and status-seeking behaviors. I realized I was trying to buy belonging, Amanda told me during one of our weekly video calls. I thought if I had the right house, the right clothes, the right vacation photos on social media, people would value me. It never occurred to me that true connections do not depend on those things. She moved into a one-bedroom apartment in a modest neighborhood and sold most of her luxury possessions to pay down debt. The designer bags and shoes that once seemed so essential were auctioned off without regret. Her expensive car was traded for a reliable used model that she now owns outright. It was hard at first, she admitted. I kept worrying about what people would think. But then something strange happened. The friends who only valued me for my lifestyle disappeared, and I discovered who really cared about me as a person. Among those who stood by her was her coworker, Julia, who helped Amanda secure a promotion at her marketing firm after Tyler left. Julia never cared what brand my purse was, Amanda said with a laugh. She cared about my ideas and my character. I wish I had realized sooner what a true friend looks like. As for Tyler, the divorce was finalized quickly. He moved to Miami with a new girlfriend who came from actual family money, still chasing the lifestyle that had eluded him with Amanda. When she heard the news, Amanda surprised me with her reaction. Poor Tracy, she said, referring to Tyler's new partner. She has no idea what she is in for. He will drain her bank accounts the way he tried to drain what he thought were mine. I actually feel grateful that our relationship ended when it did. This growth in perspective extended to our own relationship as well. Last month, Amanda flew up to visit me in Washington for the first time. As I showed her around my new home, she admired the simple beauty of the place without once asking what it cost or comparing it to anyone else's property. "This suits you perfectly, Mom," she observed as we sat watching the sunset. "It is peaceful but not isolated, beautiful without being showy. I can see why you love it here." During her visit, we had long conversations about Jack remembering his wisdom and quiet strength. Amanda asked questions about his financial philosophy and seemed genuinely interested in understanding the choices we had made. "Dad would have been disappointed in how I behaved," she said one evening. "But I think he would be proud of what I am learning now." "He would absolutely be proud," I assured her. Jack always believed in growth and redemption. He knew that mistakes are inevitable, but learning from them is a choice. Amanda has begun building an emergency fund for the first time in her adult life. She recently called excited to report that she had saved 3 months of living expenses. "It is not much compared to your 85 million, she joked. "But it is mine, and I earned every penny. There is something so satisfying about that." I have made changes too. While I maintain reasonable privacy about my finances, I no longer keep secrets from Amanda about my wealth or my plans. I have established a trust that will eventually provide for her in a structured way that encourages continued financial responsibility. More importantly, I have started a foundation in Jack's name that focuses on financial literacy for young people. Amanda serves on the advisory board, bringing her firsthand experience of the consequences of financial ignorance to our program development. "I wish someone had taught me these skills when I was younger," she told the board during our last meeting. "Maybe I would have avoided years of stress and damaged relationships." Last weekend, Amanda called with news that made my heart swell with pride. "Mom, I just made the final payment on my credit card debt. I am completely debt-free for the first time since college." We celebrated with a virtual toast, and I could see in her eyes the same quiet satisfaction that Jack and I had felt when we reached our first financial milestones together. It was not about the money itself, but about the freedom and peace of mind that comes with financial responsibility. "I have been thinking about what true wealth mean," Amanda reflected during our call. "For so long, I thought it was about what you own or where you vacation. But now I see that real wealth is having enough while knowing who you are and what really matters." Those words, so reminiscent of Jack's philosophy, brought tears to my eyes. Perhaps our greatest legacy to our daughter was not financial after all, but the values that she was finally embracing in her own way and her own time. Yesterday, Amanda sent me a photo of herself standing proudly in front of a modest townhouse. "Approved for a mortgage I can actually afford us," read the caption. "The down payment came from my savings, not from mom or credit cards." As I look out at the water now, I feel a profound sense of peace. The beach houses that once caused so much conflict are long gone, replaced by something far more valuable, an authentic relationship with my daughter, based on mutual respect and shared values, rather than expectations or obligations. I think about that confrontation a year ago when Amanda demanded our beach house and gave me 24 hours to get out. Her attempt to control and manipulate me could have permanently damaged our relationship. Instead, it became the catalyst for honest conversation and genuine growth. Sometimes the most painful moments in our lives create the greatest opportunities for transformation. Amanda's ultimatum forced me to stand firm in my boundaries while eventually opening my heart to reconciliation. My decision to sell the beach houses taught her that actions have consequences while ultimately leading to greater authenticity between us. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that caused short-term pain but led to long-term healing? Or have you struggled with setting boundaries with loved ones who have grown entitled to your generosity? Share your experiences in the comments below. I read every comment and find such wisdom in this community's shared stories.